In this video, I'm going to show you a technique for designing beautiful mandalas using a grid. I've pulled out a couple of mandalas I did a few years ago, where I left a space in the middle to write a quote or a Bible verse. I'm going to do the same thing today, leaving a ring in the middle about 3 or 4 centimetres radius or 1.5 inches. I also picked these two out because I really like the colour schemes I used, and I'll be talking about how to choose colours in the second video. So for now, all you need is a square piece of paper and a pair of compasses. I'm using watercolour paper, which is 9 inches square or 23 centimetres. I've already marked the centre of the paper and I'm drawing a series of concentric circles. Later I'll add some more circles, but at the moment I've drawn 6. I'm varying the width between the circles so I have some thicker rings and some thinner, and it's all fairly random. Make sure you have a good enough gap around the outside of the outer ring. About 1 inch should be fine. You'll see that I erased the smallest circle. I think I forgot I was leaving a space for a quote. Next I'm going to draw the grid. So first I'm drawing a vertical line through the centre. You'll be erasing most of these lines, so try and keep them fairly light. Then I turn the paper 90 degrees and draw another line, so you've divided the circle into quarters. I do this by eye, but you can measure 90 degrees if you want to, using a protractor or a set square. I don't ever measure angles, but I'm happy if the lines are roughly accurate. What I'm doing here is measuring halfway between the 2 quarter points and putting a small mark halfway. Then I draw a line through that mark and the centre all the way down. Doing the same on the other side, finally you'll have divided your circle into 8. So next I'm going to draw more lines in between the lines I've just drawn because I need smaller sections. I do this bit by eye, just making a mark halfway between the 2 lines and drawing a line through the centre. Eventually you'll have divided your circle into 16. You could do this again and divide your circle into 32 parts, but I usually find 16 is enough on this size of paper. If you're using larger paper, you might want to divide it into 32, especially if you're the kind of person that likes lots of guidelines. I erase the lines I've made in the inner circle, then I decide to add more circles, so I end up with about 10 circles. Now your grid is ready. So I take my 2B pencil and start designing, working from the inner circle outwards and using the grid lines as a guide. I'm using very simple shapes, but here is where you might wish you'd drawn more grid lines. I'm happy marking a point in the centre to aim for. I carry on with the design, using the grid lines to help me. Take it nice and slow and try to keep your shapes even. You can use an eraser if you go wrong, which is why it's good to use a light touch with the pencil. You can overlap your shapes because you'll be selecting the lines you want to keep later. You can see here I go wrong and I have to erase what I've just done. Just make sure that you repeat each pattern around the circle if you want a symmetrical mandala. I usually make designs which contain a variety of shapes and sizes, but there are lots of beautiful designs where the shapes are all the same size and shape. It's completely up to you, it's your mandala. So finally, I'm happy with my basic design and I'm going in with pen. I'm using my Stapler pigment liner, which is 0.1. Again, starting with the design nearest the centre, I pick out the lines I want to keep, just making a decision as I go and sticking with it all the way around that ring. Work slowly, this is a chance to even out any wobbles or uneven shapes. Remember, you don't have to go over all the pencil lines. It's nice to have some shapes going behind the ones in the next ring inwards, as it gives the design some depth. I tend to outline bigger shapes first and add some detail later. You can see I'm ignoring all the grid lines and most of the circles, just concentrating on the shapes of the design. I often like to have an outer border, and also an inner border if I'm going to be writing in the inner circle. So I'm happy with this stage, and now I can erase all the pencil lines after making sure the ink is completely dry. At this point, I decide to add a bit more detail. Now I'm happy with the design and ready to use some colour. See you in the next video.